They were out in the hallway. Oh.
They got something going on the side. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to this regularly scheduled meeting of the Planning Commission for Tuesday, October 8th, 2024. I'd like to open the meeting at 7:30. May we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May I have roll call, please?
He's coming, right? Yeah, Nick is grabbing something from his office.
Here he comes. Saved. And roll call, Nick?
Mr. Carpenter?
Here.
Mr. Fitzer? Mr. Kucera?
Here.
Mr. Nushai? Ms. Redmond?
Here.
Mr. Scott?
Here.
Mr. Solomon?
Here.
Mr. Tinlin?
Here.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 4 is approval of the agenda. Does anyone have any problems or difficulties with tonight's agenda as it stands? Seeing none, I will approve it as it is. And we'll move on to agenda item number 5, which is approval of the regular meeting minutes from September 24th, 2024. But you may have noticed it wasn't in your packet because they're not prepared as of yet. Because of the voting going on, administration's been too busy, so it's no big deal. We'll just move this to our next meeting. So we'll approve the minutes at that point in time. So we'll just skip it for this evening. And we'll move on to agenda item number 6, which is public discussion. I will open it for public. Anybody wishing to speak? We're going to go through a site plan for 724 Rochester Road first, and then we're going to get into the planned unit development, which I imagine most people are here that are interested in. If you have something to say now, you can say it, but my preference would be that if you let us go through our discussions first on the PUD, hear both sides of the story, then approach it with public. So if anybody at the public right now has anything that they'd like to say on the agenda or off, you're more than welcome to come to the microphone. And seeing, oh, here we go. Can you please give us your name and address?
Cheryl Dry, 779 Elmsford. Happy to postpone any other comments, but I would ask that you explain to us exactly what the procedures are in this whole couple of years that we're going down. So just, we had a meeting with the city council and the school in January and was surprised to find out in August that it was an HOA. At that meeting, nothing was said about a PUD. So now we're finding out about this. We have not been given very much notice for these meetings. For the one in August, we had less than a week. For this one, we just found out on Thursday. So it would, yeah, it would be helpful if somebody could explain to us all the things that are going to happen and how this is going to work so that we know. Because for those of us who live adjacent to the property, this is really important.
Right.
And so far, every time we come to a meeting, there's another surprise. Latest surprise is that there's 44 homes instead of 43, which was on the site plan that we were given in August. So anyway, that's my request, is just to please explain the process.
Okay,
Thank you.
hope you'll learn that as we go on, and I'll open it for public later also. Anyone else in public? I will then close public discussion, and we'll move on to agenda item number 7, which is a site plan application for 724 North Rochester Road.
Andy's gonna handle this one.
Yep, happy to handle this, Planning Commission. Good evening. This site plan review case is for 724 North Rochester. It's a I-1 zoned property, industrial, light industrial. And the use change is for a automobile detailing shop, essentially, business, where the applicant proposes to essentially clean vehicles. No repair was stated by the applicant. So we've deemed this as a use permitted by right in the district because it does not rise to the level of that repair, which is a special land use. The applicant is not changing really much to the site at all. They're going to try to reuse the site as is for the most part. They're going to add a second garage door to the south side of the building there. 9 parking spaces are provided. Because of the, I suppose, uniqueness of the use not being super explicit anywhere in the ordinance, there wasn't really a precise match in the parking schedule. Some of the repair uses go by stalls. So, for example, auto repair says you need to provide 2 parking spaces per stall provided. So maybe you try to analyze kind of a relation to that. There's 9 provided, so maybe not more than 4 stalls are provided in the interior to clean the cars, something along those lines, because that would meet the repair relation. In terms of trash, there is no, the dumpster enclosure is actually on the other site, which I'll get to in a moment. Besides the 2 sites, there's some shared access and easement agreements existing. So in terms of access, vehicles do have the right to access the other property in the easement area to get to the rear of the site. So there is that shared access easement that the 2 sites share. In terms of landscaping, there's really not a lot of landscaping currently on site, so the applicant does provide for 2 Japanese maples, which are a little bit more of the ornamental type, maybe not canopy type. So we do want Planning Commission to decide if maybe canopy trees would be better suited there to better meet the intent of the ordinance.
My understanding is that has been changed. The Japanese maple is out and something else is in.
Oh, was it?
It's-
Okay. I don't think we updated our.
They're not going to put Japanese maples in.
What's the updated tree?
They're going to, I don't know what it is yet.
Oh, okay.
Yes, no, it's not
I
going
thought
to be
they said
Japanese
that.
maple.
Okay.
Okay, so the applicant's,
Yeah,
yeah, the
that's,
plan's a Japanese maple, so that's where I got that
Yeah.
from. But perhaps there's a new tree that the applicant has specified. Oh, was it in the letter? Oh, yeah.
So after the applicant received the site plan review letter from Giffords Webster, they did provide a memo, I believe it was this morning, to staff. And so I have copies for each of you, but because it wasn't included in the packet, I will just acknowledge all those things right now and include it in the next meeting minutes. So this document addresses the Giffords Webster site plan review questions. For off-street parking is all detailing by appointment or drop-ins accepted. Detailing is by appointment. Other question is, do customers generally wait for their cars, or will vehicles be kept on site when they are not actively being detailed? Customers generally do not wait for their cars. Most of the cars will be brought over for detailing from the other Sunshade location at 721 East Elmwood. There will occasionally be a car or 2 in the parking lot, but we never expect to see a full lot. Cars are generally moved inside the building within 10 minutes or less. We do not leave customers' vehicles in the lots for extended periods of time. Question was, what is the maximum staffing level? The response was there'll be 1 or 2 employees on site. Regarding the trash enclosure, we will only have, this is their responses, we will only have 2 to 3 bags of garbage daily. We will bring garbage to the East Elmwood location, which has a large dumpster daily. 9 landscaping, they said we will plant 2 canopy trees instead of the Japanese maples in the site plan. Lighting, a photometric plan will be submitted as quickly as possible, as I can schedule this, assuming no more than 2 weeks. So they will provide that, if the planning commission wishes to accept it conditionally. So I'm going to hand out a copy of each of those.
Where did you say they were taking the garbage? Okay.
thanks. There's a dumpster in the building next door. I don't know if that's what they're planning on using.
I thought,
Yeah.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you on the tree thing.
No, that was a really good point. I have that letter as well. I just was reading off a separate printout, so thank you for that. The lighting is a question. I think Nick just covered it. The applicant is aware of that and is conducive to submitting a plan. So the items in green that were not, that are kind of still pending, like lighting, that could be a condition of approval if you wish to approve the site plan tonight. I am happy to answer any questions about the use. I think the applicant is here as well. Yes. Yep.
I have a few questions for you before the applicant comes. Which lighting would we be applying to this? I'm not sure. Are there hours? Is that something we went over and I just am not recalling? Are there hours later at night? Which lighting are we going to use for that?
I do not think the business specified hours of operation in any of their materials. Do you know if they did? So 9 to 5:30,
Okay.
according to the applicant.
So just in general, if a use isn't spelled out in our ordinance, it's usually not allowed. I don't love on the fly kind of trying to put an ordinance together, just in general. That didn't work out very well the last time we did that. I think it's worth actually, I know this isn't going to be like smoke in a backyard, but I think it's worth actually having discussions about what that use looks like in further detail, especially in the future, when we don't have a use allotted to a district. Just my thoughts.
And quite often, those don't appear on our site plans. Sometimes they do, but quite often they don't.
What?
In photometric plan. And quite often, they can change the lighting. This is the outside lighting on the parking lots and areas. And a lot of it, I think, is held by the building department, and administration takes care of it. I mean, that would be on our list of things that we want done, for sure.
But aren't there different lighting plans depending on the area of the district,
Yeah,
the building?
sure.
That's what I'm saying,
It's basically, if you're next to residential, we don't want you to light up their neighbor's backyard.
right, which is why it would be important for us to know which lighting guide they're going to use to submit a.
Okay, so we'll-
And why, just one reason, and I get we're not doing,
Right.
I just don't like zoning on the fly without a use where we've actually considered that use and how we might work that into that actual district.
I mean, use for lighting or use of the building?
Use of the building in itself.
Well, this
Right.
was a former window tinting for automotive, right?
Yes.
This is right down, I'm on Key West, so it's right in my neighborhood, and I've walked the property. So it's already been using for automotive accessories, right? Just not detailing.
Just,
Okay.
I mean, detailing could be argued that it's similar to automotive repair, right? I mean, if the car needs to be detailed, it's going to, you're repairing. Yeah.
So maybe just
Hold on,
stay
please.
into rules of order here a little bit.
Any other questions for Andy?
No.
Okay, would the applicant like to come to the microphone and address any issues with us? Evening.
Kevin Robbins.
You own the place, or?
I do, yes.
Okay,
Yep.
And I'm Paul Grodd, I'm the general contractor who's been overseeing the work.
okay.
So, to answer your question, detailing is totally different than repairs. There's no engine modifications, there's nothing that goes on under the hood. It's basically washing cars, waxing cars, detailing the insides. And, so I didn't see it anywhere near the automotive repair as I looked at your ordinances. And the folks before us were doing window tinting. You would bring your car in, they would tint the windows. So I didn't view us as that much different. And as far as the lighting goes, we're gonna have 2 lights on the front of the building, and then there's 2 spotlights on each side of the building and 1 on the back. Generally speaking, the hours, as Kevin said, is 9 till 5:30,
Monday through Friday.
Monday through Friday. I don't anticipate us lighting up, anything other than where we're at with the businesses. And when I submitted the notes the other day, I asked the planner to call me and tell me, you tell me what the lumens are, you tell me how far you want them to go. I understand what a photometric plan is, and the lights that we bought are adjustable. So we can adjust the lumens and, we'll comply with
They're wall
exactly what
packs
you want it
that
to be.
shine straight down just for security purposes, right? Cameras and such.
Yeah,
Is all they are.
it's not a critique of you, I promise. I just, I wouldn't even, without any guidance of what a lighting plan might look like for there, I don't know, the sunshade is fairly new, right?
Sunshade?
Or sunshade, yeah, or
No, it's been in Troy since 1985.
1980
Yeah,
oh, really?
We've
Okay.
been on Elmwood since 2021.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking
We
of.
just moved to the other end of Elmwood, closer to Rochester, but we've been on Elmwood for over 10 years now.
10 years, okay. So you probably haven't, you got a site plan done then,
Yeah,
right?
that's Troy side.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, so, okay.
Yep,
At the building that you're currently in front of us for,
yes.
the use before it was for,
Window tinting.
okay, but it's
Yes.
not sunshade.
But it was not sunshade.
Okay,
It was owned
that's
by-
why I was
It was
confused.
not sunshade.
Okay,
yes,
gotcha,
Yes.
gotcha.
This is sunshade detail. This is just an offshoot of my current business, overflow business, going to this location, having main road exposure
Cool.
is what it's designed.
Do you, sorry, do you already know what I was gonna ask?
I just wanted to specify too, when we had conversations with the applicant early on about the use change, one of the reasons we deemed it a permitted use is because we also deemed it less intensive even than the previous use, when hearing an explanation from the applicant. So that was really why we took that use as similar to those permitted by right.
Okay. Do you know when the current building that they're going into, the last time that had a site plan done? And if it was within the last 5 years or, no, you guys don't know?
They
I'm just
oc-
wondering if we can get a scale on how compliant the lights already are there,
They
right?
occupied the building for 18 years.
Okay, so it's been a while, okay.
I think, and when they submit a photometric plan, we do need to review to make sure that lights are full cut off by the, Society of, or the Illuminating Engineering Society of North America. So we look at their plan specifications when they do submit a photometric plan, to make sure that there's not wall packs shining into neighbors' windows and whatnot.
They're straight down, yeah.
Yes, they're full cut off.
Yeah, they're,
Well, you guys are
Yeah.
tucked right in between the new floor company, right, and the
Yes.
new collision repair
That's
facility that
correct.
came to us, what, a
Yep.
couple months ago, right?
Yep.
So you're right there, more
we're
of
right
a
next
concern
door to
industrial
Excel, which I
area.
have a business relationship with them now too, so.
You planning on sharing the dumpster with them? Is that,
No, so we're only gonna have probably for at least around the first year, one employee, and basically, we don't create waste. We launder our towels in-house and so on and so forth, so it's basically just food from the course of the week, and we'll just bring it to our site at 721 East Elmwood.
okay, so that doesn't seem to be a problem.
No.
And the canopy trees, you're not going to put Japanese maples in. Do you know what variety you're going to select to put in?
I looked at the ordinance, and I just have to figure out what trees are available up at the nursery. So we'll pick a couple of them that are on your list and comply with.
Yeah, we have a
that.
list of trees that we prefer over
Right,
others.
yeah, I saw it, yes.
Okay, any other further questions?
Yeah, is there, we didn't talk about handicap. Is there handicap spots
Yes.
already dedicated? Are they, is there one, two,
There's one right at the door.
Right at the
Right
door.
at the entrance to the sidewalk, yes.
Okay. And Andy, do you know if that's compliant with,
Yeah,
you know,
so
the similar
depending on-
use?
Depending on the width of the van hatched area,
Mm-hmm.
it looks like it would be compliant, it looks like it's got appropriate width. They actually have 10 spaces if you include a van accessible space, so.
And the
Okay.
architect did note the sizes, that it had to be for both the regular and for the handicap.
Okay. I was wondering if the similar use ordinance that Andy was referring to is it just one handicap spot that we needed in that one? I mean, it doesn't seem like there'd be a need for more.
Handicap spots required in any land use.
No, just one though.
But just one, yes.
Not two
correct.
or
'Cause
three,
It goes by
okay.
number of total spaces required.
Gotcha.
Yep, so 1 to 24 spaces.
1 to 24, okay.
Any further questions for the
I just
applicant?
had a point of clarification. I think I heard you say, so for the trash, I just thought it was tedious to be taking it back and forth, but you're saying that you guys use towels, you don't use like Armor wipes, anything else solvent-based that would be thrown in the
Nope.
trash, it's just waste from your employee
Correct.
eating?
Just
the
eating
basic
lunch.
day?
That's
Okay.
it, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Most of the business comes from Kevin's primary business over in Troy, and what's happened is people have said, well, don't you detail cars too? I want to bring my car back and have it detailed. So that was kind of the birth of this second opportunity. But most all the clients will probably end up stopping at that place first, because that's how they got to know Kevin. Kevin wraps cars at that place, if you're familiar with what that is. It's all protectant for, newer
Vehicle
cars.
protection.
Yeah.
Coatings.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you. I'll entertain a motion at this point.
Okay. I will make a motion to pass 724 North Rochester Road with the conditions that they submit and comply to the lighting ordinance as well as the landscaping ordinance.
Second.
Motion support. We don't have to worry about the waste. We're only interested in the trees and the photometric plan, which they say they will provide. I have a motion support. Anybody else want to?
I guess one more thing to amend my motion,
thought
if it's okay. Also signage, I don't know if there's signage already there, but that's usually something we already include, so also complying to our sign ordinance. Do you still second?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other further conversation? I'll take a roll call, please.
Mr. Kucera,
Yes.
Ms. Redmond,
Yes.
Mr. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Solomon,
Yes.
Mr. Tinlin,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome to Clausen.
Thank you, appreciate it.
And we move on to agenda item number 8, which is a conceptual review and qualification of a planned unit development application for the former Shalom School site. I don't know if Mr. Tangeri's going to walk us through this.
Yeah, I'll get us started. I know the applicant has a presentation for you as well. Probably a limited need to introduce the site. It's the Shalom School site. I think people are generally familiar with it, but in the event that you're not, it's north of Elmwood between Bywood and Selfridge, and it is across the street from Clausen Park. As you're all probably aware, the school has been taken down, and the school district had a request for proposals out last year for plans for the site, and the applicant was the selected proposal. So the site is 8.117 acres. It's zoned R2 single-family residential. Surrounding zoning is entirely single-family. Development around it is also all single-family. Clausen Park, of course, is directly east across Bywood. The single-family zoning is a mix of R2 and R1 around this site. R2 and R1 generally have the same standards. The only difference between R1 and R2 is the required minimum square footage of a dwelling unit, which is 1,248 square feet in R1 and 720 square feet in R2. And the maximum impervious surface coverage is also different. It's 55% in R1 and 60% in R2. So planning and development proceeds in stages. There's a pre-application conference where the applicant comes to the city to discuss their proposal with staff. That was done in June. Conceptual review and qualification is the stage we're at right now. The Planning Commission reviews the plan to determine whether it qualifies for planning and development based on the eligibility criteria of Section 34.1 or 34.3.1(s)(1)(d) of our planning and development regulations. If the plan is qualified for a PUD, it will proceed to a public hearing. The Planning Commission will hold that public hearing. Based on the schedule of meeting dates and noticing requirements, we always have to set the public hearing out far enough in advance that we can get the noticing done in time. There's a required 15-day period. So it has to be noticed in the paper, and then because this is site-specific, it would also have to have notices sent to all the properties within 300 feet of the perimeter of the site.
Within 15 days.
A minimum of 15 days prior to the hearing. At the public hearing phase, Planning Commission makes a recommendation to City Council about final approval or denial, and City Council then gets the plan on its agenda, and it will issue the final approval or denial of the request for planned unit development approval. If City Council votes to approve the planned unit development, then they develop a development agreement that is ultimately signed by representatives of both the city and the applicant. That document outlines any relief from ordinance standards that might be permitted under the PUD, as well as the obligations of the developer. That would include the site plan itself, and everything has to be built according to the site plan. Diving right into this, our planned unit development regulations are pretty extensive. There's a lot of text there. There's a subsection 3.1(s)(2) that outlines the permitted uses in a PUD. Planned unit developments may permit business, service, office, and commercial uses, and may permit them in tandem with attached single or multifamily uses. In this case, the only proposed use is detached single-family homes. So when this came up, you'll note that detached single-family homes aren't in that list of permitted uses. The applicant opted to pursue a text amendment, which can be requested the same way as rezoning, to add detached single-family homes to that list of uses permitted in a PUD. That application has been received, and that will trigger a public hearing at the first meeting in November, which is the 12th? I'm going to verify that, but I believe it's the 12th. Yes, the 12th. So at this point, the applicant did still want to move forward with this initial meeting with the Planning Commission to receive the Planning Commission's thoughts on the plan itself, any feedback that you might like to give. And they basically, they want to know how the Planning Commission is feeling about the plan and whether or not it would like to see any alterations made to the plan. And I'll let them ask any questions that they have of you during their presentation, of course. But I was expecting our attorney, but hopefully he'll still be arriving at some point. But as far as action tonight, generally speaking, I would say that until the text amendment is discussed by the planning commission at that hearing, you're probably giving feedback rather than an actual decision on qualification. I think the applicant would like to argue for a decision on qualification, but my position generally would be we should have that hearing first, so that we know where we're headed with that text amendment. Because it is, the ability to do the PUD here would be contingent on the outcome of that text amendment.
Joe,
Mhm.
is this the first time I've heard of that? First time I've heard of a developer wanting to change our ordinance through,
This
is
is-
that the correct process to go through? Is
Yeah.
that something?
So this is the second time it's happened. The other time was the owners of 288 submitted an application for a text amendment. 288 West 14 Mile submitted an application for a text amendment that was subsequently considered by the Planning Commission and ultimately adopted. So yes, under the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act, any amendment to the zoning ordinance may be applied for by an applicant. And usually what those amendments are is rezonings. In fact, the planned unit development is strictly speaking a rezoning itself. But the MZEA doesn't make a distinction between an amendment to the zoning map and an amendment to the zoning ordinance. So if someone wants to have a community consider a text change to an ordinance, all they have to do is fill out an application and request that the amendment be considered by the municipality.
In that is something that's given to planning commission to decide through public hearing?
Well, the planning commission doesn't decide, it makes a recommendation.
To-
So,
right, okay,
Yeah,
to
so
city council.
you will have a public hearing, and the planning commission then makes a recommendation to city council, which then will do a first and second reading on the recommendation, and then ultimately make a decision as to whether or not to adopt the text amendment.
Okay, and then is there criteria that we are considering that's written out somewhere in our charter, ordinance, bylaws?
Well, you will have some criteria that are in your ordinance for amendments. We have a set of questions for text amendment requests that we typically ask, somewhat similar to the set of questions that we typically ask for a rezoning request. And that will help walk you through kind of how to make a decision on the request. Sorry, I've got cough drops here. I can
Joe, just in
shake
layman's
this
terms,
cough.
so I can be a little clear, you're saying currently the PUD doesn't apply to single-family residence homes, right? It's used for-
Detached single family.
Okay.
It
So they have to have a
specifies
clarification.
attached single family, so
Oh.
like townhomes and things would be eligible to be located in a planned unit development. Part of the, I guess, difficulty here is that when the request for proposals went out, a planned unit development was explicitly stated in the RFP as an option for the site. So I think everybody came to the table expecting that single-family homes would be what they were building on this site.
Well, Joe, I mean, it's also not, so that's a use. It's also not explicitly stated in the R1 or R2 zoning, the map or the district, that a PUD is an allowable use. I know I've mentioned that to you prior to, but there's, in B1 and B2, it explicitly says how a PUD works, as long as it's, conforming to that. If you go to the beginning of B1 or B2 in our zoning ordinance, it does give that as a use, but R1 and R2, it's not a use. So I just feel like that's something we might want to consider when considering adding the use by way of
Right,
amendment.
so it's listed in the statement of purpose for those districts. It is not in the list of uses for those districts because strictly speaking, the way our ordinance treats a planned unit development, it is not a use. It is a rezoning to a planned unit development designation for that property. So while it is mentioned in the intent statements of the B1 and B3, it is, strictly speaking, applicable anywhere in the city.
But zoning enabling act does allow cities to specify what areas they're putting it in. So the way.
And if the ordinance does that, then yes, but.
So why didn't we put that in every other district?
Well, I wasn't around when the intent statements for most of the districts were written, so I couldn't
I
tell
would
you
say it's because they
explicitly.
were intended to go in those districts.
But, it's possible that they, were just thinking that this would be a good option for this district. But the listing it in the intent statement is not the same as putting it in a list of permitted uses. And the planned unit development regulations that we have are not place restrictive in terms of where a planned unit development can be proposed.
Well, I would say that that's the way of doing it, since you can't do it by use. And the fact that language meets up and it doesn't call out detached residential homes in a PUD, that's another, I think the intent is pretty clear on PUDs not being in a residential zone. So I think that there's more, all I'm saying is, going into this text amendment, I think that there's more we need to consider besides putting a word in there. And that's part of it.
Right, you're going to look at your master plan and a bunch of other things
Yeah.
when you're making a decision on that.
And the section you're referring to here, section 34-31S2, that's part of our city ordinances? That's been on our books for a
That's
long time?
part of your zoning ordinance. Yeah.
Surprising me because I've never heard of a PUD, I think, 3 years ago. And then we got one, and now we're starting to see more of them come in. So it's an ordinance that we wrote years ago, apparently, on the books. And all we have to do now is do a slight modification to it, from my perspective.
Right. I don't know exactly when your PUD ordinance was written. It's been in there for a long time, but I don't know exactly when it was written.
I had the feeling that PUDs were kind of a new item on.
They did them for Ambers back in the day.
They've existed since at least the 80s.
80s, yeah.
Okay, maybe just because I've never ran across them before then. It just seems like something new to me, but,
Yeah.
okay.
So let's get into the details of what's being asked for here. They're proposing a single-family development, total of 44 detached single-family homes. That is a density of roughly 5.4 dwelling units per acre. The homes have detached garages. We'll have square footages ranging from 2,100 to 3,000. The lots will be mostly, not all of them, 45 feet wide and 5,500 square feet at a minimum. 13 of the homes have typical driveways. These are mostly along the north part of the site. Those are 50 feet wide, the houses that line the northern part of the site. I took a look at all the surrounding lot widths. The homes to the north have 50-foot lots as well, except for the corners, which are wider. The homes across the street to the west and the homes across the street to the south are also 50-foot lots. And then if you go further east, if you go further west, generally you're 50 or higher. And then if you go further east, those lots go down to 40 feet wide when you get to the ones that are around the park and to the south of the park. The design also includes 2 alleyways from which the detached garages and other parking areas for the remaining homes are accessed. And then there's a stormwater detention pond. The ownership model will be a condominium with a homeowners association. The plan also includes a central mail kiosk for the neighborhood. So those criteria for qualification that I mentioned earlier are on page 3 of the letter that you received. I will go through them. Recognizable and substantial benefit is number 1. The planned unit development shall achieve a higher quality of development than would otherwise be achieved under conventional standards. and shall result in a recognizable and substantial benefit to the community and to the ultimate users of the site. The applicant submitted a narrative that included a list of what they perceive to be the public benefits here. It also discusses at length how the use of alleys provides uninterrupted sidewalks and less overall impervious surface due to the absence of driveways in most lots. The applicant also notes that the detention pond is designed over the required capacity. They are going to, of course, talk about, their opinion of what the public benefits of this project are during their presentation, so I'm not going to get into any more discussion of that at the moment. Availability and capacity of public services. Proposed type and density of use shall not exceed the capacity of existing public services, facilities, and utilities. Per the DPW and city engineer, water and sewer capacity is available. They did submit a traffic impact assessment. That impact assessment indicated a low impact on the development of surrounding streets. Number 3, consistency with the master plan and zoning ordinance. The proposed development shall be consistent with the goals and objectives of the city's master plan, the purpose of the zoning article, and the intent of these plan unit development regulations. So the 2018 master plan, I think I said 2028 in my letter, it's 2018 master plan, identifies the Shalom property as public, quasi-public, in recognition of its former status as a school site. The draft master plan update currently under development redesignates this land as single-family residential, which is analogous to the R1 and R2 districts. The 2018 master plan includes the following goal and objectives related to Clausen's neighborhoods. It's goal 3, preserve, protect, and enhance the residential character of Clausen's neighborhoods. A, protect neighborhood character while allowing for property improvement. B, encourage transitional development between single-family residential neighborhoods and commercial corridors. C, encourage streetscape maintenance. And D, continue to enforce the property maintenance code and ensure consistent enforcement. The 2018 master plan also includes the objective to eliminate unnecessary pavement and other impervious surfaces. And number 4 of these criteria is economic and neighborhood impact. The proposed development shall not impede the continued use or development of surrounding lots for uses permitted by this zoning article or planned in the adopted city master plan. Generally speaking, the addition of single-family homes to a neighborhood of single-family homes is what one would expect in a neighborhood of single-family homes. The applicant's narrative does directly respond to each of those criteria, and again, I trust that they will touch on that during their presentation. One thing to note about qualification, those are the criteria for qualification. Qualification does not constitute final approval or site plan approval, final PUD approval or site plan approval, nor does it require that either will be granted at the final PUD stage. It does, however, permit the plan to move forward to a public hearing and final PUD approval, and provides the PC with an opportunity to provide feedback and guidance to the applicant. Getting into the site plan, they did submit a relatively detailed site plan here for this subdivision. At this phase, they could submit something much more conceptual than they have. So there's a fair amount to dig into here. You are not ruling on the details of the site plan itself at conceptual review. You're only deciding whether the plan qualifies for PUD approval based on the eligibility criteria. Nevertheless, we're just going to discuss this.
Hey, Joe. I think it would be best to postpone this portion of the PUD process. I do heed your advice about resolving the language in the amendment to our PUD zoning ordinance. And I mean, I don't know. I would like to make a motion that we postpone until after the public hearing on this. I don't think it's fair to go through the whole process and have them presenting until they actually know where we come to terms on that.
Tonight's meeting is considered a conceptual review and qualification of a planned unit development. we're not voting on a site plan approval or anything else legalized at this point in time.
So it doesn't qualify because it's not in the language.
Right.
They wanted to amend our language. I agree with Joe that we should not be qualifying or disqualifying right now because we're pending that approval or that review by us on November 12th. So my motion would be to postpone the actual review of whether it qualifies for a PUD until after we potentially have the language in our ordinance. I don't know. Can I get a second from
I
it?
mean, regardless if
agree.
it goes through a PUD or an R1, it's worth actually having a discussion, though, about how we view the plan right as it stands.
No, we're not reviewing the plan, we're
No,
reviewing the,
but I think it's fair for them to hear some of our feedback if it does go through R1.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it sounds like we have no intention to make any recommendation tonight besides there's people from the city that may want to speak on this. They
okay.
may want to hear a presentation, and then obviously the developers want feedback. So I'm open to hearing. I understand your perspective.
I just think that
There's
we're
no-
putting things in the
we're
wrong
getting
order.
ahead of ourselves a little
Way
bit.
in the wrong
But
order
if we
here.
have people here, and I'm okay with it, but
Okay,
I'm listening to what you're saying as well.
okay. That's fine.
Knowing that no decision is going to be made.
It basically boils down to a meet and greet, and we're going to ask some questions and get some questions answered, and public's more than welcome later on to ask their questions. One thing that it might clear up for me and for the public, these are homes that are being built, houses,
That's correct.
a house or a home. Why does the term condominium show up once in a while?
Condominium is a form of ownership. So we tend to think, we used to use the word condo when you tend to think of a building with multiple units in it that has, they're all for sale. But condominium is just a form of ownership. So it can take several different forms. Sometimes you have lot lines like you have on this plan. So there's all these individual lots, each with a house on it. Sometimes you have an arrangement where you have common space and then people own from the walls in of their unit. That's not this model that's being proposed here. But that's one way of doing a detached single-family condo.
So these are going to end up being private homes with
Exactly.
defined yards and area.
Exactly. And the primary result of doing it as a condo is that you wind up with an association that has bylaws and a master deed at the end of the process. And that association is going to have certain enumerated responsibilities. They're going to have at least, let's say this plan as presented gets approved, they're going to have at least private alleyways and a detention pond to take care of. Those will be responsibility of the condo association. And I guess there's common mailbox area as well.
Okay.
Just, I guess I'll go through some of the details here. There's not that
Joe,
much
can I
to
just
go
ask
through.
another question, just a clarifying question to that too? So if one of these properties came for sale, would the listing say single-family home, or would it say condo?
Well, it's going to say single-family home because that's what it is, but it's also going to have to note that it is in an association, and when that home is sold, the conveyance of that home would include the master deed, the bylaws of the association, and whoever moves into that home is going to assume the responsibility for paying whatever association dues there might be. So I already gave a couple of the details of what the lots would be like here. In a total vacuum where you had like a perfect configuration of the land, like let's say you had a two-sided block, it was the right width, and you were able to chop the block up into 5,500 square foot lots, you could strictly speaking get 65 lots at the lot size But of course, we don't have that configuration here. We have more of a square. You have to put streets in it. You lose a lot of land to the streets. And they wind up at 44 on their layout. They provided a parallel plan that shows 42 lots that are compliant with all the R2 district standards. That does not include the alleyways. So they're 2 lots above what their parallel plan shows. If you look at the requirements of the R2 district, there are really 4 that they're asking for some variation from. One is minimum lot width, because some of the lots in here are 45 feet rather than 50 feet. One is maximum lot coverage. That's coverage by buildings, not the impervious surface coverage. And they would be asking for 45% rather than 35. Again, the size range of the homes that they're proposing here is 2,100 to 3,000 square feet. So they're going to take up a fair amount of a smaller, narrower lot. Maximum building height, they are requesting 2.5 and 30 feet rather than 2 and 25 feet. I didn't see any evidence of the half floor on the floor plans that were provided, but I guess they can speak to that. Front and side street setbacks, they're proposing 20 feet with a porch encroaching up to 5 feet into that, so 15 feet. The typical front setback is 25 feet. The other setbacks and the minimum lot size are met everywhere.
What about corner and clearance, Joe?
Yeah, they would be meeting corner clearance. The way the landscaping is done, it is kept out of that triangle. Where the roads intersect and where the alleys intersect as well, they've kept the landscaping out of that triangle.
The 25-foot
Yeah,
triangle?
25 by 25, yeah.
And why didn't we apply the 4.5 ordinance to it with the development of public property?
Yeah, that's an interesting provision of this ordinance. So to get into that a little bit, sorry, I really just can't get rid of this cough. So what this section 4.5 does is it sort of anticipates that Clawson or another institution such as the school district in Clawson might sell property in the future. And that would be for development that constitutes a change of use. So if you sold a school and it became a school, this would not really apply. Basically what it requires is if you're doing standard single-family residential use, you would submit a site plan for that redevelopment. And it gets into if the proposed development is intended to use the same configuration of a recorded plat affecting the parcel of land. Basically, if you're going to follow the original plat, the original plat for this piece of property has been expired for many decades. Then it calls for single-family residential to meet the existing building regulations as to height, setback, and lot area requirements. And of course, a PUD is a venue under which one could request modifications to that. And then to the extent possible and practical, the architectural style of original houses within the recorded subdivision shall be complemented by the appearance of the new building. So it's kind of looking for compatibility of the houses with the surrounding neighborhood.
I think that's an important point, though, right?
Right.
And the
and they
setbacks
have-
are different, Joe.
What's that?
The setbacks are different.
Yeah, exactly. That's part of the reason they're doing a planned unit
Well,
development.
it's different than R2. The setbacks for 4.5 are 35 in the rear, sides add up to 20 versus the 15 there. And the intent of that ordinance was to not overdevelop and take away green space from a previously publicly owned land. That replaced a large lot ordinance that was repealed, and this was put in its place with that intent.
We
The large-
still have a large lot ordinance in place.
Huh?
We still have a large lot ordinance in place.
2012s?
It's not the exact thing as 2012, but it's been modified to have some different standards, but it's still very much in place.
Well, does.
This I don't know when this was added to the ordinance. It's been in there for.
This one was added, the development of public property was in 2019.
This was definitely in there before that. I mean, it might have
Okay.
had a couple modifications made to it at some point, but this has been in there for a long time.
Well, I don't know what that matters, but if the large lot ordinance still applies to this property like it once did, then there's multiple ordinances that we're needing
Well,
to
the
look
large lot
at.
ordinance only affects lot splits. It doesn't affect condominium development.
Okay, so the large lot ordinance, you said it's only what?
Lot splits.
Lot splits?
Yeah, which is a different.
Right, it's a
mechanism
different
for splitting
development
land.
plan.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. But the 4.5 does, right? So I'm confused by,
Right. So 4.5, I mean, yes, it applies, but again, a plan unit development is a tool by which you can request to vary some standards. So the standards in here are basically
just-
saying you develop it by the R1 or R2. It would depend on which direct district you're in. I mean, there's really not any difference between varying from the standards of the underlying development or the underlying district and varying from the standards of this.
Joe, I think that's
provision.
part of the consideration is to get a fair baseline of what is the ordinance say about this area? How much variance are you looking for in each of those proposed setbacks, lot size,
Right.
all these things?
which
So it's
is
important
what
to
I just
have.
went through.
Right, well, but we're, to apply the fair and the accurate baseline that we're deviating from, I think it's important to know which the setback
Well,
is.
The setbacks that I just went through are what that section 4.5 is referring to. Because they're not proposing to go beyond the original plat. They're actually far less than the original plat would have allowed. So that second little chunk of standards there doesn't apply to what they're asking for. It's that first little chunk of standards that says use the R1 or R2 district standards, depending on what district you're in,
Okay.
that applies, and those are the standards I just went through.
So it's not referring to if the homes are larger, it's referring to if the lots are larger?
It's referring to the lots,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
It's saying, you know, you could revert to the original plat, which is kind of I don't know, that would be really odd, just given how expired the plat is. Or you're going to be meeting the district standards, which is what they're asking to vary via the PUD. Excuse me. You know, and it kicks into that second set of standards if you're going beyond what the original plat would have permitted in terms of the number of lots that are being requested.
Well, so that does apply then if it's the
No,
number
it
of
doesn't,
lots.
because the
All right, I'll
original
reread
number,
it, 'cause I
the
must have
original
said-
number of platted lots was so much higher than 44 for
It
this
was
site.
32.
It was, these were 40-foot lots when it was originally
Before what?
platted.
Showing development.
Yeah, these were
This
40-foot
is going
lots
back
as
to
it was
when this originally
platted.
was developed.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
aerial gardens, right? I thought it was 32 plots that were cited there.
Yeah, I mean, at any rate, the original plat's long expired, but
So Joe, you're saying it's not a relevant conversation then?
yeah, I'm saying they're supposed to look at the R1 and R2 standards. That's what they're asking to vary. And those standards are laid out in this letter here.
So what was the intent of 4.5 then? For if
I
they
think it was
got
to
bigger
guide,
lots?
it was to guide conventional redevelopment of a plot like this, and they have chosen to try to vary the design of their property by asking for a PUD.
Okay.
A note on, excuse me. So, condominium development does have some standards for approval. They're generally set forth by the state, so there's a preliminary and final approval of a condo. And that, of course, would apply here. The off-street parking requirement for a single-family detached home is 2 off-street parking spaces. What they're showing on the plan is that there'd be a 2-car garage for each of these houses and then a 2-car pad in front of the garage. You have a full driveway on those lots along the northern part of the plan. And then when you get into the alley areas, there's like a 2-car pad in front of the driveway so that you can get a little bit of extra parking outside of your garage.
Is that included in the impervious surface?
It would be included in, so the garage itself would be included in the lot coverage. And the pad for the driveway or parking pad in front of the garage, depending on which type of lot you're looking at, would be included in the impervious surface, yes.
So that's 35%?
The
Including,
impervious surface coverage that's permitted.
It's 35%.
or I'm
so
sorry, they're
the-
asking for 45. That's what I
The
meant.
building, yeah, the building coverage, so lot coverage speaks to buildings. They're asking for 45, it's typically 35. And then the impervious surface coverage in R1 is, R2, which is where we are, is a maximum of 60%. They're not requesting a relief from that 60% impervious surface coverage.
And is that the standard 2-car garage size? Because I thought it was like 24 or something. Is that?
I don't have exact dimensions on the garages that they're providing. They are intended to be 2-car garages.
Okay.
So they might be adding a little extra room. I don't know. I guess I'd have to let them speak to that. Single-family developments generally exempt from the landscaping standards of 515. However, they do show 1 street tree per lot per frontage, a handful of additional street trees, heavier landscaping around the detention pond. This is a PUD. The Planning Commission can discuss landscaping with the applicant. You could, discuss whether or not you're looking for landscaping, a little beyond what they're proposing in certain locations if you feel that it is related to achieving the goals of the PUD regulations and your zoning ordinance in general. They haven't mentioned any street lighting at this point. If they're going to propose any, they would need to present that at final PUD approval. They are maintaining public sidewalks around the perimeter of the development and up the streets within the development. Streets and alleys. So they're proposing that the streets and alleys within the development be private and maintained by the homeowners association. We do have a subsection in our ordinance 3.1S3BI that requires that each lot in principal use within a PUD district have access from a public street right-of-way. So the streets, I've talked to DPW and engineering about this. Their position is that the streets are going to have to be public, the alleys can be private. And then we have our standards for PUD approval, 3.1S6. So that sets forth some standards of review for PUDs. I did abridge them a little bit for the letter. There's some sub-items under some of these. We'll review those in detail at final PUD, but of course you can consider them while discussing the concept plan as well. PUD intent statement is invoked several times in these regulations, so just for the benefit of everybody, it is the intent of this section to authorize the use of planning and development regulations for the purpose of encouraging the flexibility and the regulation of land development, innovation in land use and variety in design, layout, and type of structures constructed, achieve economy and efficiency in the use of land, natural resources, energy, and public services and utilities, encourage useful open space, provide better housing, employment, shopping opportunities, compatibility of design and use between neighboring properties, and development that is consistent with the city's master land use plan. We have a couple notes about sustainability that are drawn from their narrative. And then we've also just put a little reminder of the relief from ordinance standards that they're going to be requesting at the end of the letter. Like I said, they do have a presentation, so unless you have any specific questions for me, I can cede the floor to them.
What's the purpose of submitting the parallel plan?
Well, I think what they are trying to show is if they were to do this completely conventionally, this is what you'd be able to get. And they're basically allowing you to compare that to the proposal as they have put it forward. Yeah, I mean, that's really what it's for. It's for comparison's sake.
Joe, if okay, I might be understanding this wrong, but 60% for the total lot coverage, including.
That's all impervious surfaces, so
Right.
that include buildings and other.
So is my
pavement.
math bad? If they're asking for 45% of that to just be building, I think it would be safe to say that they need a variance on the 60% total coverage.
I mean, I would have to be able to look at every individual lot and see if
Okay.
there are any that are trying to vary that. But they've not requested relief from that, so I
Did
think,
they- I just didn't
think
know if they knew
their
it was there.
intent is not to.
Ask
vary
for, because, so 45 plus 60 would equal,
Well, you get an additional 15% for whatever, your parking pad, driveway, or et cetera.
okay. That would be 15, okay.
Any further questions for Joe?
I guess my only question was, there was reference to a parallel plan that I did not see in our packet. Can you just verify if I missed something there?
If you look in the narrative, the parallel plan is included in the narrative. I think it may have been provided on a separate sheet as well. I may be misremembering that, but I think it's the second sheet of the overall package.
It's on page 35 in the
Yeah.
packet, 35.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm not looking at the packet. I'm looking at the plans. But yes, it's provided in the narrative and on a separate sheet.
Thank you.
Sure.
And was that based off of the Aerial Gardens one? Because it has a similar street names that were vacated at one point in time. You don't know?
I
Okay.
don't know offhand.
Anything else for Joe? Does anybody have questions for the applicant?
Well, I think they're going to do a
Well,
presentation,
Yeah,
right?
they'll do a presentation.
We're set with you, Joe, and then we'll accept your presentation.
Good evening.
evening.
How are you?
Good.
Thank you for your time tonight. I'm a former planning commissioner myself, so I know it's a thankless job, and we appreciate your time. I'm Tim Lochran. I'm the Vice President of Land Acquisition for Robertson Homes. With me tonight from Robertson, I have Jack Flynn and Darian Newbecker, our president. Also, our partners on the deal, which the shares, which is Mitchell, Roger, and Stuart Share. So, all available for questions afterward. So again, I want to appreciate your time. I'd like to give a quick presentation, if you're okay with that, and then obviously open up for some questions. Before I do that, I'd like to give a little bit of background. So I know Joe kind of mentioned some of this already. We were awarded the RFP for the site earlier this year. It's been kind of a long process, but we wanted to make sure we were doing everything right. There was a lot of engagement that the school district has. I'm sure a lot of you know that. Before they even sold it. And really, I think the most common theme was single family. So we understand that. We build all types of products, but single family is what we want to build here as well. So we're excited to get started, obviously, but for all of the approval process, which we're happy to go through. In addition to that engagement that the school district had, we also held a neighborhood meeting in August. We notified everybody basically on the two streets behind us and to the side of us and across the street. We held it at the high school, and it was actually a pretty lively conversation. I thought a lot of good things came out of that. In fact, a lot of the neighbors are here tonight because we notified them. They had given us their email address. So we're very transparent. We want to make sure that we're giving all of the information that we possibly can as we go forward. Tonight, we were requesting a PUD, a concept, and a qualification. I'd still like to move forward with that, but listen, this is your community. We're not going to muscle you. If you're not comfortable doing that, we completely understand. We see it as just the first step in many steps. So we would like to move forward if we could, knowing that the next meeting would also be the text amendment, which Joe kind of talked about. From the text amendment, it seems like it's a bit of an oversight, just because Clawson is mostly single family. It seems like it would make sense to be in there. In fact, didn't even know about it till last week when Joe kind of called me up and said, "Hey, we've got this issue in the PUD." It's not kind of clear to see, but we think the best way through that is through the text amendment. Perhaps there's other things we can certainly look at, or you look at during that process. But again, from a PUD perspective, it makes sense to have a detached single family. That's something that's traditional with other communities, not that, your Clawson, which is obviously unique. So again, we'd like to move forward with the PUD, really to provide for a more efficient use of the property. And I'm going to go into that a little bit here in a second. First of all, it's kind of an irregular property. You don't really notice it when the school's there. It works for the school, but there's some curves on the property. There's some right angles. It's just kind of difficult to make work. As Joe kind of mentioned, it's difficult to make work with a kind of a traditional layout. There's also a lot of grading difficulties on the site. So you can't really notice it when the school is there, but it does fall quite a bit from the northwest to the southeast, which makes things a lot kind of difficult to plan the site. And then we believe through the PUD we'll be able to reduce the overall storm runoff through creative design. So we'll get into that for a little bit as well. We're only really requesting some minor relief. That's the two additional lots that Joe had mentioned. I've got the parallel plan we'll get up here in a second as well. In addition to that, the minimum lot width. So we're requesting from 50 to 45. That's on a handful of lots. The majority of the lots are 48 feet or 50 feet. It's only really on a handful of lot that the 45-foot would be applicable to. But we do have to put the minimums, right? So that's why we have what we're showing you as the PUD deviations. But what I'm saying here is most of them are 48 feet or 50 feet. Minimum front setback, we are requesting a reduction of 5 feet for the principal building, and that's really to give better backyards. Really not much of a purpose to have a deeper front setback. In fact, from a traditional standpoint, we'll have porches obviously on the front, and it just makes sense to have those up close to where the sidewalks are. We've done that in several other communities and think that that's actually a better kind of neighborhood, if you will. We built this at the Normandy Village project, which is 2 miles that way. Where am I standing? And you can there you go. And you can obviously see for yourself if you haven't been in that community. That's kind of the type of quality that Robertson builds, and very similar to what we're proposing here. So really that 5-foot set reduction is for better backyards and really kind of have more of a neighborhood feel. We are asking for a height increase from 25 feet to 30 feet. Realistically, it's really 26 feet and some inches. So we can certainly bring that down. Our product from where the midpoint is measured is like 26 feet and I don't know, 6 inches or something like that. So, we put in there 30 feet. We can be more finite with that, but we wanted some relief from the 25-foot for the product we're proposing. Joe had mentioned the 2.5 stories. It's probably really not 2.5 stories. What we did at the Normandy project is we have an option. They could put a couple bedrooms upstairs. It doesn't add anything other than a couple windows on the side. But that is how we consider that 2.5 stories. So if that's not 2.5 stories, we're not requesting 2.5 stories. We just, figured that that's something we'd like to have that option if possible. There were a handful of people that selected that at Normandy. And then the last deviation would be for maximum lot coverage percentage. Most circumstances, we're going to be able to meet the 35%. What we'd like to propose, we have options that we allow our home buyers to select. And some of those are, say, a 3-car garage. Some of them are attached covered patio in the back. All of those go toward the lot coverage percentage. So the experience we had with the Normandy Village, which, by the way, had smaller lots and we're proposing here, we knew that there'd be a few circumstances on maybe a few lots that would go over the 35%. And if they selected everything, they could get up closer to the 45%. So again, it's really a finite. It's not every single lot's going to be 45%. Most of them will be under 35%. But again, we want to be proactive with this, and we really don't want to tell people they can't build their dream house. And they want to be in Clawson. They want to build their dream house in Clawson. We want to be able to provide all of the options that we have. So those are the deviations. For the most part, they're really not noticeable, but it really kind of helps us to provide a more efficient project and give those options to the home buyers as they come in. So this is the site plan. The proposed plan, it might be difficult to read. I know all of you have that in your packets there. We are proposing 44 lots. These are single-family homes. I know the question came up. They're not condominiums. We build condominiums. We build detached condominiums. We build townhomes. We build mid-rise condominiums. These are not condominiums. They call them site condominiums. It's different. You own the lot. I don't think there's been what you would consider a platted, traditional, single-family neighborhood built in the last 20 years. It doesn't happen. And that's because to go through the plat process takes a long time through the state. I'm talking years. So what home builders like us do is what the Condo Act allows for. We go through the site condominium procedures. So there will be a master deed, there will be an HOA, homeowners association. There would be, regardless if we do a PUD or not, this is how it would be developed. It would be developed with a site condominium. So we will have a pond. Regardless, we have to have a pond that has to be maintained by somebody. We're not going to make the city do it. That'll be the HOA. We're proposing alleys, which I'm going to get to in a second. That would be maintained by the homeowners association. We're actually proposing the streets to be private as well, but with the new information, it sounds like those have to be public. But regardless, the HOA would maintain basically everything for the pond, any kind of the snow removal for the alleys, any kind of replacement of asphalt, that sort of thing. So there had to be an HOA anyway. Anything that's going to develop here will have a homeowners association and be done as a site condominium. Yes.
Is your Normandy Oaks, is it called?
Normandy Village, Normandy Oaks, there's two of them.
Is that an HOA?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Everything we've built in the last 20 years, regardless if it's single family or not, is a site condominium with an HOA.
Okay, and then that one, the named streets in there, I drove through it this afternoon. Looks nice.
Thank you.
The named streets are maintained by the city and the alleys are maintained by the HOA?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes. And yes, so the townhome portion of that, and then the alleys, that's part of the townhome, those are all maintained by the homeowner association. The city maintains the roads. Correct.
Okay.
Yes. So I guess we'd be proposing a similar thing. I'll get into a little bit again with the alleys. It is, we believe that's a much more efficient design. We believe you get a much better street presence. So I've got some slides that kind of go into that, but that kind of guided our design on this. We obviously did a kind of more traditional front entry detached garage along the north side adjacent to where the, obviously backing to where existing residents are, just to be back to back. But you'll see the street scene, really, you get a much better street scene. You get a much better walkable community with that alley design. We put the pond in the southeast corner. That's just where the drainage goes. That's the most logical place to it. We're proposing that to be upsized from what the minimum requirements would be, which would help out the neighborhood. The alley design itself is a 20% reduction in impervious surface. And that's, you can actually see it on the plan here. Since we don't have all those driveways coming to the back of the home, it's basically just the pad on the back behind the garages off the alley. We're saving a lot of concrete, which is just impervious surface, which just adds to more storm water volume. And we think that this is just a better rig. In general, there is no storm water provisions at all on the site. So no matter what, we're bringing it up. We're proposing to bring it actually 10% better than even what the requirements are. So that's the site plan. We can get into more detail unless you have any questions on it at this point. We're proposing obviously the street trees and then a lot of landscaping around the pond. So from a project summary, really we wanted to have a walkable and inviting type of community. And we think there's a lot of demand for housing in Clawson. There's just hasn't been the ability to do that, right? So we've been looking at the site for a long time. We knew that there were sites coming out from the Clawson School District. We weren't certain exactly which ones. We think this is a wonderful site across from the park. We believe there'll be a lot of people that want to move here into this community and be part of Clawson. We'll offer, it's all single-family homes. Everybody will have a two-car garage with at least two spaces for guests. They're about 2,100 to about 3,000 square feet. So a little bit of a range there, 3 and 4 bedroom type of homes. And really just bringing people into the Clawson School District where they just can't find available new homes right now. You all know that. It's about 8 acres, existing zoning is R2. And I think we talked about all this already, so next slide, please. A couple highlights. High-quality, owner-occupied, single-family homes. Again, look what we've built. We've built a number of communities in Royal Oak. We built in Ferndale, really all over, and we've always wanted to be here. So this is a great opportunity for us to continue building high-quality Robertson homes and share homes. 44 new taxpayers. It's not generating any tax revenue, and it hasn't. So obviously you can see what will be contributing. Walkable, inviting community, lots of sidewalks, safe sidewalks, where you don't have conflicts from backing up vehicles. Obviously that's a housing option. There's just not much of it. It really is a logical land use for a functionally obsolete parcel of land. So the school obviously is not coming back. It is what it is. It's that cake has been baked. But we feel that this is really the right land use. I think everybody can agree with that. We're basically single family to single family. We're adding a number of kids to the school district, which was really important to the school district when they sold it. That's something that they really obviously wanted to bring in additional students to the school district. And the other thing is we think that this will spur more retail and restaurants in your downtown core. It's a great downtown. We love it. We think this is a really big selling point for our community as your community. And we think it'll spur even more retail here. So that's something to be excited about. Shameless self-promotion. We've been doing this a long time. Robertson's been in business for almost 8 decades. Ask around. I think you'll hear good things. Nobody's perfect, obviously. And Share is right there with us. So you've got 2 good developers. And that's important to you because you've got people here that will do what they say and say what they do. Next slide, please. So from a PUD qualification, I've got bad eyesight, so. And I hit some of this obviously in the narrative, but I think it's really important because that's what we're here obviously to talk about from a qualification standpoint. And so there's 4 qualification standards that you have to meet, and we hit all of them. I'll get into some of this PUD benefits, but these are just a couple of them. I've mentioned it already, the 10% increase in stormwater detention above what would be required from the county. 20% less impervious surface than if we did that traditional front driveway design. And that is significant. That's quite a bit of storm volume. I don't have it on the top of my head, but it's a significant amount of storm volume that's not going in to your storm system, and obviously less opportunity for any flooding.
Can I ask a question
Yeah,
about
of
that?
course.
If you're asking for a variance of 10% increase, then how are you claiming that you're decreasing the amount of surface.
So it's two different things.
Yeah, so do you meet the 60%, I suppose, that is required on the lot?
On the yes,
Yes.
most certainly.
So, and that's, which one are you referring to then? You're talking about the building surface?
So the 20% less is what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yeah, so 20% overall less impervious surface, the whole project. So if we were to
Okay.
do all front driveways, we would have 20% more storm volume we have to take because it's more impervious surface that's going to be on the overall project. We're
So-
taking that away.
How did you get that number?
We did a calculation with and without front entry, front driveways.
Like just how much concrete and
Yes,
asphalt you use?
exactly,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah, and the site plan really shows it. If you look at those north lots, and I'll show a picture here in a second, you'll really see the traditional style, it's all driveway. And we're able to provide a lot more green space in the
Yeah,
backyards.
the math just seemed weird to me to say that you're using 20% less, but asking for a variance. And I get that you're referring to different ones, right?
Yeah.
For a lot, whole coverage with the driveway and everything. You're only referring to the home and the
building,
garage.
correct. Yeah, the building and the garage, yes.
So okay, gotcha.
Yep. Yeah, we will not have any impervious surface issues whatsoever.
Okay.
Less economic constraint on city services for snow removal and road replacement. So when I wrote that, we were considering doing private streets. We'd still like to do that if that's possible. It doesn't really matter to us, to be honest. It's obviously cheaper for the maintenance to have it done by the city for us. But again, that's snow removal and road replacement certainly would be in the alleys as part of this. And then providing a high-quality product that obviously is in demand. The city's already said that there's plenty of capacity. It's less than what the school was. In fact, as from a traffic perspective, I just got the numbers today, will be basically half the average daily traffic than what the school had. So, from a public service, there's really no question the city can service this site. Consistency with the master plan and zoning ordinance. To me, this one's obvious. We've got single family all around us, and we're basically going to be weaving in there in that respect. So similar, lot sizes similar, setbacks similar, everything to our neighbors, essentially from a single family to single family. A lot of times when we're doing PUDs, and you kind of had mentioned this at the beginning, a lot of times we're doing it because we're doing townhomes or maybe a higher density or a mix of types of uses. Sometimes we do it just for single family in cases like this where you have kind of a unique, a regular type of area. But from that perspective, we think we're very consistent with the neighborhood. And then the economic impact, it's obvious there'll be taxes, tax revenues. We're bringing in people to your downtown, which I think will be great no matter what happens on this property. And then, obviously not impeding the continued use of the surrounding lots by what we're proposing. So we can go to the next PUD benefits. I just want to dig into this a little bit more. I've talked probably about all of these. It's a functionally obsolete property. Something will happen there. I don't think you want it sitting there forever, right? And we think this is really the best plan that could go on the property. It's a product that's high in demand. I mentioned the 10% increase over what the county requires. 20% less impervious surface. I know I'm repeating myself, and I apologize. Got the HOA, new tax base, and then it'll be about 100 plus new residents that would obviously enjoy your retail. So I think there's a lot of advantages to having a development. I think these are a lot of PUD benefits that can come along. And listen, we're early in the process. If there's something else that you as a city say, really, we've got this idea, can you work with us? We're willing to work with you. These are the things we see right now. We just want to be commensurate with what we're asking for. We're really not asking for that much if you put it in perspective. We're actually asking for 2 additional lots and a little bit of relaxed development standards on kind of a onesie-twosie basis. So, we'd like it to be commensurate with that, but certainly we're willing to work with the city on if there's something important that we could be a part of. Next slide, please. This is Normandy Village, the one 2 miles that way. Wait, you said that way. So this is an example of that. And the reason I'm showing this slide here, this is from a drone. The reason I'm showing this slide here is because it really gets to the meat of the discussion on alleys. If you notice this, you don't have a road, or you don't have a driveway that's basically stuck right past the side of the house on any of these. You have all open space in the front. It's all green. Nobody's threatened by a car backing up. There's so many advantages of this, not the least of which is aesthetics. So we really like this. If you go to Normandy Village, you look to the right, that's our alley homes. You look to the left, those are basically traditional. You'll see the difference. It feels different. Next slide, please. This is hard to read, unfortunately, but it really does kind of speak to it. The top left, again, Normandy. And that northern road on the top there, that is the traditional detached garage front entry. And I think you can see all of the concrete. It's basically concrete. Your backyard's concrete. People don't like that. They want to have open space in their backyard. And on the south side is exactly what I was talking about. It's the other side of the street where we do have alley load. It's all green. So they have all the space that they want in their backyard to use. And you know, we've done this before. We know what buyers want. This is why we're proposing this. This is something that is more attractive to home buyers because they have more use of their land. We would even allow, and you can see in some of these, there's some concrete next to the garages. We would like to propose that here too. They could put in a pad next to it to have additional parking. Let's say they have a 16-year-old, which I almost have. You know, it'd be great to be able to have a spot for them as well. So that would be something that we could offer as an option as well. But, you know, just look at the bottom right. You can see all of that landscaping in the front of the homes. And then on the left, that is just a better look. It's better aesthetics. It's better.
Just point of order, the audience can't speak while the person's up at the podium.
So some of the advantages, better street scene. I think I've kind of made my point on that. Pedestrian-friendly design. It's where you'd want to walk. You want to walk here. It's not, you know, I lived not too far from here with a detached garage. It's not as safe to walk. You've got driveways and cars backing up. Less curb cuts and vehicular conflict. Less impervious surface and drainage runoff. This is how we're achieving the 20% less impervious surface. Better use of backyards for the homeowners. You can see it right there on that bottom part of that road. And then just more overall green space for the community, which is very important. And then mentioned it before, reduced vehicular and pedestrian conflicts. Next page, and I'm almost done. Next page is the traffic impact analysis. I just threw in the conclusion on this. It's easy for me to say it, but we have a third-party consultant, Fleece and Vandenbrink, very respected consultant. They basically said there would be a negligible impact from our development. This doesn't even take into consideration of the fact that we'll have basically half of what the overall daily traffic was when there was a school. So from a traffic perspective, it's really not something that would be noticeable from at least what the experts are saying. We can move on to design. Next page, please. And this is just quickly what we're proposing. This is our Princeton plan. And essentially, it's, you know, this was very successful for us in several communities around here, but lots of open living area on the first floor. Great room, dining room was all open with a kitchen and a den up front, and then you got 3 bedrooms upstairs. We would propose, if we could, adding that second and a half level, if you will, which doesn't really increase height, just has some of those 2 of those bedrooms in the attic space. It's not something we have to have. We just would like to be able to offer that to home buyers. Second page here is the Franklin. It's just a little bit larger. It's actually a little bit more open, if you will, a little bit wider home. And then the last page, these are all Robertson homes that we've built in several surrounding communities. So this is what we'd love to bring to your community. I'd love to answer any questions you have, but that's our presentation, so thank you.
At Normandy, are you finished building at Normandy?
Oh, yes, yes.
Are those all sold?
Yes.
They're all filled?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, those went pretty quick.
Yeah. You got a lot of pluses going for it from my perspective, but there are some other things. You're asking basically for 4 pieces of relief.
Yes.
When we say the minimum lot width it's 50 feet is required, you're saying 45 feet is requested, and you say not on all lots. Well, if you come back before us again, I'd like to know how many lots.
I just did some quick math, it's like
Yeah.
15.
But that, to me, that's a general statement.
Sure.
You know, not all of them are going to be 45. A lot of them will be
Yeah,
50.
no, that's
but
very fair. Yes.
I'd like to know an actual number on that, rather than a general statement. The same thing on the minimal front setback. 25 feet is required, 20 feet is requested. If you have a porch, you got it down to 15 feet. And I understand your point, so it gives you a bigger backyard if you do that.
Yes.
Is that going to be for all housing? They're all going to be 20-foot setback. I would assume these are all going to be flush, so.
Yeah, so essentially it would be, the porch is about a 5-foot porch, so that
Yeah.
would be, proposing that 15-foot is what, and that's the same thing that was at Normandy when you saw those pictures. The building itself would be a 20-foot, so it's a 20-foot setback with a 5-foot projection for a porch.
Okay. The maximum height is 25 feet required, 30-foot proposed. So you're talking about this third, or is it 2.5 story?
Yeah,
it's
we're at like 25 and a half to like 26 and 3/4. So we're
It's
just.
not a full room up there? Is
No,
it
that
is it a
2.5.
small peaked attic?
Correct. It's just basically windows in the attic space. It adds a little bit of height because the roof has to get a little bit, the projection up a little bit more. So it makes that midpoint a little bit higher. But yes,
Okay.
in no case we'd be over 27 feet.
That might be an issue. You might have problems with residents because, these houses are going to look huge compared to the housing that they're backing up to.
That's a fair point.
So appearance-wise, you might consider dropping that.
Okay.
Same thing with maximum lot coverage. 35% is required, 45% is requested. Note this is building coverage, not impervious surface coverage. And your comment was most is under. I'd like to know how many are,
Yeah, no, those are very good questions.
more specific numbers on that. Because if we approve this thing as is, you guys go ahead and we don't have any control anymore.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
I just like that. Does anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, if I could piggyback on you, I would, it's really hard for me to try to do the math on, I don't know how long the driveways are on some of these. It would be helpful if you could break down each site. I don't know, I'm sure you have a list of the sites in which each specs are for them in terms of total impervious surface, as well as the building coverage and the whole lot coverage. Is that something that you guys have broken down somewhere in your formula?
Well, it depends on what house they select and what options they select.
So these, that was going to be another question I had. So these are not, so it might be bigger or smaller depending, some of your homes are wider, some are more narrow. So you don't have a specific lot that you're going to put a specific home in.
Correct. We would offer, so we have two main homes, the Princeton and the Franklin, and then we have potentially the 2.5-story version of those. One is 25 feet, 24 feet. The other one's like 30 feet. So
Wide?
it depends. Yeah, wide, correct.
Okay.
So it just kind of depends on which home they select. And maybe they want, like I said, the sunroom, the additional sunroom. So that, I can't give you an exact. I could show you some of how we calculate these numbers, if that's helpful.
Well, maybe take the average of 25 and 30 feet and go with 27 and give me, I mean,
So
I don't
you're
know.
looking for an average. I can certainly do
Well,
that.
no, I would like to know per lot.
Okay.
It varies greatly on some of these lots, especially like, lot number, what was it, number 1 or something? I'm like, whoa. Maybe it was 1, I don't recall. But it would be helpful to know what the percentage of an impervious surface is and use, maybe that number as a baseline for the building so that we know it might vary 2 feet one way or another. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah.
So that I can just, because some of these look like there's a lot of surface coverage. Maybe the calculations, I'm just not good at eyeballing. So it'd be helpful for me to have something to look at.
Okay.
And probably for everyone else.
Can I ask a related question before we get off? the
Sure,
topic?
yep.
Yeah. So just so I understand better, you are selling individual lots, then they have the option to build these different homes with, like you mentioned, additional concrete slab in the back if they want extra parking or a
Yep.
covered patio. Is that right? So they purchase a lot and then they can build any option? Or do you have like certain sections where you intend to build larger homes? So like, I'm trying to think of, is there any consistency to design, or is it just based on what's selected by the purchaser?
Yeah, I
for each
think,
individual lot?
so essentially, we design it to where you can build either of those homes on any lot.
And customize as they
And
would.
then, yes, and add those. So, basically, the reason it could get up to close to 45%, but only if they select maybe the smallest lot, the biggest home, all of the options, including a third-car garage. That's when it starts kind of getting up there. Most of them will be under the 35%.
Okay, my question was, I guess, are there any restrictions on what options are available based on the lots listed here, 1 through 42?
The only limitation would be the lot coverage. Again, if it's at 35%. We have the same thing in Normandy Village. Again, those are a little bit smaller lots. So we have a whole matrix that kind of determines what the lot size is, and then all of our options based with those homes and what it spits out. So we're trying to get to the point where we don't have to use that, right? Because otherwise what happens is they come in and they go, well, I want this on that. Well, you can't have this, but you can have this, some of it's elevation dependent. So we're trying to not make it as confusing on the front end for home buyers. That's what the request is.
Okay, thank you for the
Sure.
clarification.
Let's say I purchased one of your houses, and I have a garage off my alley, and I got some green grass space in there.
Yeah.
And I understand it's a homeowners association, and if I decide I want to concrete a patio between my house and my garage, number one, I think the city would not allow that under city ordinance. Do homeowners associations, they also frown on that? I understand they have controls as what color you can paint the house, your doors, your...
They do, yeah. So there'll be some limitations on things like that. But for the most part, with our single family, we're sort of hands off. We say whatever the city allows. So the HOA will basically say, you have to go to the city and get it approved. So if you've got an impervious surface requirement, they'd have to come to you for that, for any kind of
Put a
flagstone.
swimming pool in the backyard without city approval.
Right. From a HOA perspective, we're usually pretty lenient on that. We'll say you can put a fence up, but it's got to be this type of fence. That's sort of the thing that the HOA would do. But it's not like a detached condo or townhome where you can't do anything.
And you
It's
sell them
different.
unfenced lots, I assume, and then
Yes.
the HOA decides on whether they can fence or not.
We'll basically set those parameters through the condo process where they'll have a certain type that they can put in. So they'll have to get an approval from the HOA, and it has to meet the certain specs that we have. So you don't have like, a tan
Right.
one next to a
Steel,
brown one.
wood, plastic,
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly. So we'll try to be consistent.
Since we're on HOA, what's your policies for rental? Purchasing a home, then just making a rental unit?
Generally speaking, we don't have that issue with single family. We do have some provisions in there as far as certain percentages that can be rented at any given time. But generally speaking, if people are buying these to rent, we screwed up in pricing them. I mean, these are homes that people are buying to live in.
Well, yeah, so I guess with that question, is it in your bylaws that you have that percentage? Because I know sometimes people can have difficulty mortgaging them if there's a certain, if you got 70% of them as rentals, you have a really hard time getting a mortgage on
Yeah.
there, and that can really
Exactly right.
affect
You're
neighboring
exactly right.
properties.
That is. And so that really applies more to townhomes and the number of units that can be rented in a certain building. So we're very specific about that. We're not as specific as with single family just because it's, again, that's not something you typically see. Do we do it in single family? So we do it in single family. Yeah. So we do put in the bylaws, there is a
And
percentage.
it's
'cause important to
compliant
us,
with the
too.
lenders? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question on like landscaping, but kind of related to that. Are you guys gonna bury power lines, or are you gonna have?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so everything would be underground.
Okay.
Yes. Now, there's a power line, I'm sorry, not to interrupt, there's a power line basically on the north property line, which we're not touching, but everything on site that we'll be putting in will be underground. I'm sorry, you're right, he's correct, there's on the east road, there's also a power line that goes north-south. and that'll stay.
All right, yeah, part of the question was because I know we're focused on maintaining good tree canopy throughout the city, and obviously this is something they want to focus on, but it looks like most of, and if you can confirm this for me, a lot of the proposed trees are in the kind of right-of-way easement, not really on the property, given that there's not a lot of green space, is that correct? Am I looking at that
Typically, we
correctly?
like to put them between the sidewalk and the curb, just it's more of a traditional type of look. We haven't got to the point necessarily where we're understanding all of the utilities, although we do have quite a bit of engineering done. Because yes, you can't put trees necessarily where there's, say, a sewer line. So those may have to move back out, but I believe we've gone through the exercise to put them where they're at.
And is there, that was another question I had, because right now there's a nice plush easement on Bywood before you get to the road. I didn't see how you guys calculated the easement on your site plans.
Which easement on? you
I
said on
think it's
Bywood?
Bywood. Is it Bywood or what?
Are you talking about the power lines?
No, I'm talking about just the easement, the city property, the easement there. Because it looks like some of these homes look to be 9 feet from the sidewalk. Number 44, some of the homes seem to be pushing really close to the
So
sidewalk
the homes
there.
would be 20 feet there. Oh, you're talking the side set.
Yeah, and the city easement, house 44, the city easement looks to be much bigger than it's shown in this picture. So how wide is that easement there?
Yeah, are you talking about like the right-of-way in particular? Because there's no, I'm looking at the easement plan, there's no easement.
It's the side yard setback on the
Yeah.
corner lots.
Yeah, we're not within an easement on that, on 44.
You don't have, isn't that where Bywood goes to? Or, that's, okay. Okay, so that's Elmwood, so sorry.
Elmwood, yes.
So 19 through 14 would be the Bywood. Is that the same size easement that's currently existing there?
Yeah, so we're basically taking 20 feet from the right-of-way, and I don't see any other easements.
You're taking 20
Okay.
feet away from the right-of-way on Bywood?
Yes. The setback. 20 feet back from the right-of-way.
Okay. Okay, does the right-of-way change, the size of the right-of-way?
No,
Okay.
we're not moving the right-of-way. It's a 76-foot right-of-way.
She actually brought up a good point. So on this proposed site plan, the side yard setback wouldn't meet the requirement either, though. 'Cause it does look like it's much shorter on the corner lots.
Well, and that's why I wondered about the corner clearances, because I'm like, there's no way well, maybe there is.
It's showing 9 foot.
It's, 9 foot, it's not 25 feet corner clearance, and then I just don't see a 25-foot corner clearance there, but maybe I'm,
Yeah, I mean, we're proposing 5 foot, and again, to the right-of-way that we're building. So that new road, the east-west road, essentially, everything will be within that road as far as easements. And then we'd be 5 feet from that, which would be a typical side setback.
But the corner setback, the side or the corner setback, or side yard of a corner lot would have to also meet the front yard setback. So currently, it's proposed as 9 foot. If you were to get your variance or your front yard setback, it would have to be a minimum of 20.
So what I'm hearing is in order to,
Well,
it's number 44, I
It's
think.
pretty much all the corner lots.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
37, yeah, those are 10 feet. I think that's a good point. That's something that I don't think came up with our conversations with staff too. So we'll look at that and, right, I think that's probably an additional deviation from a corner side setback.
Okay. And how tall are your garages? Are those, because I thought a two-car garage was 24 by something. That doesn't, is that
Our
a
standard
standard?
is 20 by 20.
It is a
And then
standard?
we have a 2.5 car, which is 25, and then we have a 3 car, which is 30
Okay.
by 20.
In what, you said that you spoke a lot with the community, you went out and did the town hall.
Yes.
What type of feedback did you take from residents and apply to this updated plan?
Essentially, we told them we wanted to get discussion with you guys as well. Some of the feedback, there were some people that didn't like the alley. There were a lot of people that did. There were a lot of people there that said they want to buy a house. So it was kind of a mix, if you will. I think overall, my sense was that it went fairly well, but there's always people when we're building in the backyard. They come out and they have, things to say. And we've listened to them. I've had a couple conversations with some by phone, and a lot of those were our neighbors to the north. We've got some trees we're going to have to work with them on. We've got, like I said, that DTE easement that we'll certainly work with them on. So we're willing to have those conversations as we go through the process. But those have been mostly our conversations.
Okay, so there wasn't feedback that you applied to the actual site plan from that feedback?
No.
Okay.
I've got a question. So, with the parallel plan that you provided, aside from the two less houses that's proposed on the primary plan, are there any other variances that be required?
So there are a few lots that would require kind of a funky house, if you will. And you can look at that parallel plan. That's really the point I think we're trying to make. It's just not efficient. It's not an efficient, perfectly rectangular type of site. So there's some lots that would probably need a variance or some kind of help necessarily to be able to build it with our typical product, or not. And we could build a house that's shaped like on 26 or 30, and that's just how it's going to be. I don't think that's better for the community, but that's one of the challenges we have on the site.
Oh, so you weren't proposing this as an actual parallel, like, hey, you can choose this one? You were,
Our proposal is the PUD plan.
okay.
Yes.
Well, because if you zoom out on our city and look over lots, the neighborhood right to the side of this is very similar in size and layout, and they actually have, they've got a cul-de-sac there. And I could easily see how this works with the cul-de-sac because it is a similar, right? So I don't know if it's that difficult to build on, I'll just say that, because you keep saying it's a weird site and it's difficult to build on. But, so this isn't necessarily something you're looking to implement, the parallel plan?
Listen, if we get through this process and we get denied, we'd have to consider if this is something we want to build. I think there's some challenges on this. So we looked at it and we made our offer, and we were very clear with the school district, we're going to proceed with a PUD because we have a vision for the site. Again, we're hoping the city appreciates our vision. But there's certainly challenges to that parallel plan.
Okay, because I was going to ask for those lot sizes to be broken down, but if it's not something that you're actually considering, I will save you the time in that.
Can I ask about just want to know your thought process on the alley? I think it's a very unique solution, right? I live next to new builds that, you're right, their whole, it's the driveway all the way back. So it's concrete, and they have a tiny slab of actual living space where they can have the kids walk around and have some green space. But obviously it's unique and it's a different kind of aesthetic, but also just in terms of how it'll be utilized. So you have the pad in front of the driveways for additional parking.
Yes.
Would you allow street parking in the alley?
There's really not room. It's more of a fire concern. We would allow having the pad, as I mentioned, to have another, and I didn't draw it on here. I do have something I could show you, but essentially it's maybe that one view of Normandy could show it, but essentially it's just another 10-foot pad next to it. That could be off-street parking, if you will, off of the alley, so additional parking. And of course, street parking on one side in front of the homes as well.
Yeah, and would you, and I apologize if it's too much information, but would you require fencing in the back? I'm trying to think how the alley would actually operate, right, in terms of.
Wouldn't require it. If you look at Normandy, I'd say probably a lot of them use it just because it enclosed their now usable space. So I think a lot of them will enclose it with a fence, but it's not something I think we necessarily require.
Okay, thanks.
Any further questions?
I had a quick question. Are the dimensions on your plan currently using the dimensions of the largest house of your two products?
For, you're talking
The
about the
dimensions, because I noticed.
the
that-
deviations?
Yeah, well, the distance
the
between the
building
homes.
footprint.
Yeah,
I got
the
you.
building footprint, exactly. Is that based on your largest homes?
It is. That's our
Okay.
Franklin, yes.
Okay, because I noticed that several of these have a separation between the two homes of only 15 foot 7 inches, which seems awfully tight for such a large home.
Well,
So,
again, it's 5 and 10-foot setbacks, but yes, that would be if everybody selected our largest home, which obviously is not going to happen. So our smaller homes are 5 foot narrower, so you'd see, it wouldn't be as, dense as what you're looking at on this. We wanted to show worst-case scenario, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
but you don't have any rules around that, right? So you could have 5 of them in a row.
Yes. Now, we will have rules as far as elevations. We're very specific about can't have certain elevation for 3 homes in a row, can't have same colors across from each other or next to each other. So we're very specific on how we do that because we don't want them to all look the same. I mean, people will probably select the white and then have 5 of them, and we don't want that. We want to have that kind of variety. So we will dictate that, but not unless there's a lot coverage issue that we can foresee. We would allow them to buy either product.
Anything further?
Yeah, so there's multiple ways that this lot can be developed, right? There's the condo, which is the typical way, right? Nobody splits it up and parcels
Site
it out.
condo, yeah.
Yep. What makes this development better than a site condo that comes in here and wants to comply with the ordinance and doesn't get a PUD? What benefit are we getting from this? What makes your build better than any other bidder? Because I know there were other bidders, right?
Yep.
So what makes you different?
So again, I'm just looking at the parallel plan. I think what we're providing is more unique. It's more aesthetically pleasing in many circumstances. And then we're proposing some of those additional things like less impervious surface because it's a lot less concrete. Mentioned that we're saying we're going to add 10% to the storm. We don't necessarily have to do that. We think it's something that is a benefit to the city, so it's something we're proposing. Wouldn't have to do that if you're not doing a PUD.
Wait, you'd have to do the pond no matter what?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm saying
okay.
we oversized it by 10%
Oh, as a public benefit,
as a public
right?
benefit, yes.
Yeah, in the pond, did you guys consider that it's right by the football field and that there might be geese, that we'll be fighting off geese now on our football field? Is there a place that can,
Yeah, I obviously there's going to be some wildlife because this pond. It's not going to be an open pond, right? So it's not something that's going to be wet. It's only when it rains. So I don't think you're going to see.
oh, it's not standing?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Retention pond.
Yeah, and that really is the only. No matter what builds here, that's where the pond's going to go. It's just that's how the.
Because of
It's a
the way
low
the
point.
site is
It's a low
graded?
point, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Joel?
I know we provided some feedback. Was there anything else you were looking for? Because I would love to let people speak who came and
Yep.
they're only about a half hour away from you.
I think you guys gave us some really good feedback for that, and again, we'd love to move forward, but I understand, we'll be either way, we'll be here November 6th,
Yeah,
it
this
sounds
is-
like anyways.
One last
Boils
thing.
down to pretty much a meet and greet.
Was there any consideration to attached garages?
So
the
attached
plan?
garage, yes. So there's the rule for a step back of 5 feet. We don't necessarily have that plan. I think there's probably interest, maybe even more interest on attached garages. We just felt, and I know there's a mix throughout the neighborhood, so I'm not saying that there's only detached garages. We just felt like this was a really good spot to continue our more traditional style with the detached garage. It's better aesthetic. You don't have the garages up front. So, yeah, we had considered it, but it would require basically a new plan to kind of fit what your requirements are.
Just another quick
Yep.
question. Just asking about your considerations when you're going through this. I mean, I love the homes, the design of the architecture and the design of the homes. But, that whole area, they don't really fit in well with all the rest of the homes that are there, right? I mean, did you consider all the other homes that are around and try to make it a little bit more like it fits in with the community?
I think it does. I mean, you're probably talking about, there's a lot of ranches and things like that.
Well, there's two-story homes as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
They're a little bit different design, and I understand you're not going to make that, we don't want them to be cookie cutter.
Yeah.
We just want it to feel like the same neighborhood,
Yeah.
right?
And obviously things change, right? Styles change. Those were built a while ago. So this is really kind of the modern version of that in many respects. So we feel like this is kind of a good mix, a good match. Obviously there's going to be differences just because they're older homes.
I think it's the density for me that makes it feel like it's a different neighborhood in a neighborhood. The density is very, like driving through Normandy, I did it. It feels very dense. It doesn't feel like the same neighborhood. There's a retaining wall, right, that's gonna, and I don't know if that's a requirement for you guys or not, or if that's something the neighbors requested, but to me, that just feels like it doesn't feel like it's a smooth transition in pulling the character of Clausen through that neighborhood, in my opinion. So future, I think the density would be better off suited towards the character of the neighborhood.
Yeah. So, and certainly I appreciate your comments. This is your community. We're talking about 2 additional homes, essentially. So it's not like I'm asking, a lot of times we're going for a lot more in a PUD, I'm going to be completely honest. So we're talking about a couple of homes. And I don't think those 2 additional homes are necessarily going to have any impact whatsoever on anybody. We're talking 2 homes.
Well, maybe it's the way it's laid out then.
Yeah. Other than the school district gets additional students, you guys get additional taxes. So I think it is a good thing in that respect. But again, it is only 2 more than what the traditional R2 would allow.
I don't necessarily know where you got that number,
The
so you
parallel
have-
plan.
Huh?
The parallel plan shows 42.
Well, yeah, but I don't know how you made that because, just based on lot sizes, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if
But
you
those
think,
homes would be a lot smaller in those lot sizes if they were following the setbacks?
there are a couple that are pinched because of that, because of the irregularity. But if you think about it, most of our homes are 48 or 50. We're really not asking for much except for a couple areas where they're 45. That's really where those 2 homes are. So we're not talking about a 20% increase in density.
Right. Those things just add up, right? They start to build on one another, and then that's where you get that density feeling. I'm just giving you feedback. Because if it's only a 3-foot variation on, a side setback, then you're not going to feel the same density as you do when you add them all up together. But thank you for
Thank
coming.
you.
Thank you. Hope we gave you some items to think about. We'll see you apparently on the 1st of November,
12th.
on the 12th?
That's the first meeting, but the
Oh, the
12th.
first meeting on the 12th of November. And that's where you're going to look for the text amendment after this. Okay, hopefully we get some of our questions answered and you guys got some of yours. I'd open it to the public now. If the public wants to ask some questions, please come to the microphone. And please direct the questions to us, not to the audience.
Sorry about that.
Sure.
Okay. Rick Fennick, I live on Kinross Street. So my concern is we're going to pick up approximately 80 cars out of this subdivision that you're putting in. So everybody tries to beat the traffic light on 14 Mile Road, and they go down Kinross Street instead of going down By Road. So if there's some way we can put a no-turn signal, a no-turn sign there during traffic hours, that would be helpful. We got young people moving in now with smaller kids, and everybody's trying to beat that traffic light, and they come zooming down that street and go down towards Phillips or Broadacre to get onto Bywood and shoot on down. So that's all I'm asking for is some consideration about turning during the business hours.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
you're
Thank
not,
you.
you're not, sorry, you're not speaking just about this development, you're just saying in general?
Well, partly yes, but now that you're gonna pick up an 80 cars, approximately 80 cars, you got 40 some houses, you figure 2 cars to a house. So there's only 4 ways to get into this subdivision. It's either Bywood or Selfridge or coming from 15 Mile Road. So we're going to pick up some traffic. There's
Okay.
no doubt about it.
Understood.
We already have a lot of traffic coming down there now, and everybody seems to be in a hurry, you know.
I live on Elmwood, so I hear ya. Yeah,
So
thank you.
that's all I would consider if somebody would put a no-turn signal, a no-turn sign at that corner during the heavy hours.
Okay, on Kenroth and what?
On Kinross Street, 14
Okay,
14 Mile
14,
Road on Kinross Street. Yeah. because we pick up everybody's trying to beat the traffic light, and I understand nobody wants to wait for a traffic light, so, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in public? Please don't respond.
Oh, I thought you said we were allowed to do that.
I have the old plan. I have the old plan, and I'm sorry that I was not at the first meeting. I was unaware of it. I was on vacation when the mail came and found out about it the day after, but my neighbor brought me this original plan. And I have a huge objection to house number 1 because it's in my backyard. And it's probably only 15 feet from my little flat ranch house, and they're going to put up this gigantic house. They're going to have to take down my tree, which in the winter, there's no leaves on it, so I can get a wonderful warmth southern exposure in my house. And my heat bill is going to go way up. And/or because I'm going to be in the shade of this giant house. Is there any way I can have him put a ranch house there rather than having, I mean, it's so close. If you look at it, look at house number 1 and then look at the little gray roof next to it. That is how close it would be to my house. And it's just ridiculous. And if you look at the whole square, that's the only part that sticks out. It doesn't have a driveway. If these people have teenagers, there's going to be no place for them to park extra cars. If they have a 2-car garage, the mother, the father, and 2 teenagers. If you look at my house on the corner of Elmsford and Selfridge, that apron that you see there, we had a lot of musical car days where we had to go back and forth to let people in and out. How is somebody going to have children who get into their teen years? You know, you can say, oh, you're going to get more students into the schools, but students are only in the schools for 12 years, and then these people, are they all going to move out and we're going to move in? You know what I mean? It's just a repeated thing. So that's just my objection. I would just wish that house number 1 would fly to Venus and stay there.
Thank you. Anyone else in public?
My name's Ron McCauley. I live at 1008 Selfridge in Clawson. Can somebody clear up what a site condo is?
I asked that earlier.
Huh?
I asked that question earlier. They're houses. They're just using a different term for it.
Is it a house or is it a condo?
It's not a condo. It's not from my perspective. I mean, for paperwork, it might be.
Why do they keep talking about a site condo?
I know that part's confusing to me. That we'll get that explained for you at some next meeting, perhaps.
Okay.
Is that okay?
And I'm against alleys.
Against
by
alleys.
the way.
I know that.
And I've been over to Normandy, and it looks like that's all cement over there. That whole plot looks like it's all cement.
Thank you.
Seven 779 Elmsford, David Dry. I just had some concerns with the 10% and the coverage. It's 35%, but if somebody comes in with a big checkbook, then all of a sudden they need 60% coverage because they'll allow pads and they'll allow this and they'll allow that. So there's no real standard there. And also, what was the average rainfall rate used to calculate the water runoff? Was that pulled from 2000, 88, 89, 2015? You know, where is the data from that they calculated all this? How new is the data? That's my concern. And then also on the Selfridge side, the dip there was so severe, they're going to have to raise that up level. So where does all that water go? It's going to go to the retention pond, and in the original plan, there was 2 retention ponds. Now we're down to 1. So where did that go? So these are some concerns. And like you said, specificity?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, no generalities, so give me, but like I said, these lots are configured, but if I come in, I'm a billionaire, well, I want all of it.
Right. Some of that will be controlled by city ordinances,
Some of
too.
it will,
Yeah.
but
They're good questions, and they've had the opportunity to hear your questions, and
Yep.
there are going to be more meetings on this, obviously.
Right, but once it's all in, and if it's an HOA, do we go for the individual resident, or do we have to legally go after the whole HOA?
Interesting question, yeah.
Because I'm just a resident, so now you're just talking to me. Now, do we have to go through the HOA's attorneys, or do we go through the individual resident, It just doesn't really fit.
Right.
And I know there's no more plats anymore, I get that, but anyway, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else in public?
Cheryl Dry again, 779 Elm Street. So just point of procedure, I'm just trying to understand. There's a public hearing on November 12th. That is just for the text amendment?
Yes.
And then there
Correct.
potentially is another public hearing for the PUD?
Yes.
Okay, so I just
Yes.
wanted to make sure it was two of those. And just, I saw you shaking your head about the two retention ponds, and that is what we were told by the city, by the school system, when this all started, that it was required that there would be two. So again, things keep changing without any, yeah, you
Point
guys
of
didn't
order.
say it at the last meeting, but it was still.
Point of order, miss.
Please, you only address questions to us, not to the
Yep,
audience.
sorry. So there was that. Also, as far as what changed based on our input from the August meeting, well, one thing that changed is an extra house went in. Because that plan that she was just talking about with house number 1 showed 43 houses. Now there's 44, which means there's an extra one next to the retention pond, which only seems to me that the retention pond got smaller. And then the other thing that you mentioned is how this looks in the city, right? How it looks. So the houses that are on Elmsford that really are the only ones that are adjacent to this property are 1,100 square feet at best. And now there's a 3,000 square foot house right behind us. So yes, southern exposure, huge concern. It's our only exposure. We don't get it on the north side, and it doesn't look anything like those houses. Not suggesting that you're gonna build all ranches. It doesn't do the whole, what we're looking to do. But you can't say that that is going to mimic the look of the neighborhood when you have a house that's 3 times as big right behind it.
Thank you. Anyone else in public?
Ron Brisson, 809 Elmsford. And I'll try to keep the emotion out of it, but what I'd like to hear is, as we're the homes that back up to Shaw, we have gates in all of our fences. So we haven't heard anything, whether it's going to be retention wall, privacy fencing, what's going to go up between our houses and the new houses. It may be too early in the process, but I'd like to know what's going to happen, because all of us have gates, and I'm sure the people that are buying the $300,000, $400,000 house don't want a gate for me to get into their backyard.
Yeah.
So,
probably.
thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in public? Seeing none, I will then close public comment. And we don't need to make a motion. We're not doing it. All this was is a, pardon?
The motion is to postpone.
Yeah.
Motion to
If you're
postpone.
gonna postpone, you gotta have a motion to postpone.
Okay.
Joe, do I need to make a motion as well to set the public hearing? Or Nick said no?
It is automatically triggered by the application, but you
Oh.
could.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess we're just making it known that it's 11/12 is the date.
Okay. I'll make a motion to postpone the PUD decision until after the text amendment decision meeting on November 12th.
Second.
Second, anybody have any changes? Anything to add
Just
to it?
point of discussion.
Sure.
That meeting on the 12th, will a decision be made at that meeting? I thought there was then
A regular
2
meeting.
hearings. Will we
sorry.
be confident that,
I didn't mean to consider this at that meeting. I said until after, postpone it until after. Do you want me to be more specific on that?
I guess maybe it's a question for Administrator Joe and those guys. There's gonna be 2 readings after that.
Yeah, it
I'm
goes
trying
to
just-
council for
Let's
2
clarify the
readings,
process,
yeah.
just so we know when we wanna have this come back to us.
Do I
Does he-
need to set a date on a postponement, though?
No, you don't
Just at a
necessarily
later
need to
time.
set a date. You're doing it pending the result of the decision on the text amendment.
I guess it was, yes, pending a final decision.
Yeah.
Not just the initial meeting.
Okay, sorry, can I amend?
You're right, though, like postpone and.
I'll amend my motion to
Without a
include
date, just say, yeah.
the decision on the text amendment. Whoever supported me, I
Agreed.
forget who it was. Okay.
Still support? Anybody happy with it? Can I have roll call, please?
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Solomon?
Yes.
Mr. Tinlin?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Cusero?
Yes.
And Ms. Redmond?
Yes.
Almost welcome to Clausen. And we'll see you next month. Agenda item number 9 is the planner's report.
I don't have anything.
Nothing on the planner's report. Agenda item number 10 is staff report and training opportunities.
Try and keep this short before that 10 p.m. Mark. So the first thing I just wanted to remind everyone is this Thursday at 7 p.m. in the community room, we have a workshop to discuss the master plan update. That agenda went out to everyone today and is posted online. Again, the main component of that conversation is going to be about any specific items that you've reviewed or noticed in the master plan that you have questions on, want more clarification on. And so if you have those ready, if you could send those to Joe and or myself before the meeting, we can maybe try and have some of those answers prepared for you, and that'll help the discussion flow a little bit easier during that meeting.
Nick, I just had a question from the public. Is that going to be televised or on YouTube?
We don't have it scheduled right now, just the way the format we were going to have that meeting. We were just going to have everyone have a couple of the tables put together, and so we can lay some things out there and discuss it that way.
Okay.
So it doesn't have to be televised per open meetings?
No, I mean, technically,
because
none
we're
of
not
these
doing
meetings have to. Like, I mean, we obviously want to. That's a huge component of having public meetings, but it is not a requirement.
Okay.
And so we figured we'll take some notes on some high-level items that are brought up in that meeting. So in the minutes for the workshop, obviously, nothing's decided there, but we'll have minutes have a little more clarity and information in them.
But if the public wishes, they can come to this exciting meeting,
110%,
right?
yes.
Okay.
I'd be encouraged to. And the way I think Joe and I have talked about having that meeting is to, again, if it's permitted, depending on how many people in the public are there, if they would like to sit around the table with us so they can feel part of the conversation. Obviously, we'll be looking to those of you on the Planning Commission for the direct conversation, but anyone from the public would be encouraged to attend and participate.
Hey, Nick, did you say that was a community room, right?
Yes, in the community room, just
Okay.
so it's not, preaching or one way or the other.
Too
It's more
formal?
collaborative,
Yeah.
yes.
And if I could request maybe that Joe gives us an updated, those maps were really helpful, the bigger ones that he brought. I know it's been changed since the last time I brought mine out. Maybe if we could get an updated one, that would be really helpful for that meeting.
Yeah, I won't say yes for Joe, but I don't think that would be a problem.
Okay, I wasn't sure who printed, but thank you.
This Thursday, October 10th at 7 p.m. here at the community room. Moving on, if that's okay. Just wanted to follow up with some more information regarding the short-term rental workshop being held by Oakland County. That's October 23rd at 10 a.m. Again, I shared that link with everyone to participate, and I did also confirm that there will be a recording after that. They said usually it takes about a day to 2 days to get that available to the public, so once that is, I'll be checking and can forward that link to everyone.
Okay, great, because if you miss at 10 o'clock in the morning. catch it
Yes,
later on.
I understand that it's not very conducive to individuals in the planning commission, so that's why they have that option later. The other item I wanted to update you all on is the public notice component for the signs that the city posts at sites that have public hearings. Did get approved, and we already do have those signs up at one site that has applied for a special land use. That site is 1400 Normandy, right across the street from Royal Oak High School. Some people may not notice that's actually Clausen, but it is. So that special land use and site plan application will be in front of you on October 22nd. And so we'll have more information coming out about that. That application is posted online on the Development in Clausen webpage as that's what the sign and QR code direct people to get more information. So if any of you want to go explore that site plan before you get Joe's report, certainly encourage you to do that. And I think that's probably the direction we're going to start going with site plans, is when we get them, we put them online so the public has more time to review them, as we did hear that complaint today. And I understand that may be kind of unique for the planning commission to be on the board, not be noticed if there's a site plan coming up. And so that's maybe a kink we'll work out. But at the end of the day, I think we all just want to make sure that the community is aware of what's going on in our city.
So does that not trigger for the Shalom? Or is that one of those things that you guys are like, well, their application was technically in before it
Well, no,
was
they
passed, or-
don't have a public hearing right now.
Oh, okay.
So when they have that public hearing scheduled, or I should say if, apologies,
Mm-hmm.
they get the public hearing scheduled for whether it's a PUD or a variance, we'll have those signs go up in
That's for-
advance of
okay,
that.
that's
Yeah.
right.
So again, this didn't trigger a public hearing, so therefore it doesn't go into effect.
Thank you.
Yep. And those were the primary items I wanted to bring up today. Again, the meeting minutes from last meeting will go in front of you on the 22nd. And then in that email today, I did provide the site plan response letters that applicants get once they get approved, with the motion that was given by the planning commission, the conditional items that they need to supply the city, and then what the next steps look like. So again, just to let you know what those motions were for last meeting now, and then to give you an insight on what the next step in the process looks. Thought it would be helpful for you. Other than that, I have nothing specific unless there are any questions.
I have none. Does anybody else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 11, we have a legal update. And we have a lawyer.
Congratulations, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I have nothing by way of a legal update. I just wanted to take a moment to personally thank Mr. Tinlin for an exceedingly appropriate use of Robert's Rules of Order tonight. Thank you. I encourage all of you to engage. They're quite fun and useful, and it helps us out overall. I appreciate it, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Get a gold star, right?
Yeah, whatever I can give, I have given, sir.
I'm
Thank
working
you.
at it. I'll get better. If there's nobody else to comment, I'll.
Well, I just
take a
want to say, Nick, I'm surprised you didn't notice I finished my citizens planner, and I thought I might get.
I don't have the notification
Oh, you
set.
don't?
So
Okay.
I follow up with the citizen planner course through MSU on
Oh.
progress. And so I believe there are 3 or 4 of you that have completed the course right now. I don't want to call out because I don't want to be wrong and
Right.
publicly, not shame, but essentially. So I'm looking to get that update. And then, so I know that the link may not be accessible. So if anyone has any issues accessing the course, just let me know.
I think they made me restart because I waited too long. But anyway, I did opt into possibly doing the extension. I don't know if you're familiar with that and if you've got any feedback with how that goes.
Yes, I don't know if I took that exact course, but I took a zoning administrator course, which is kind of tied into that. I can get some more information to you and everyone else on how that looks once you complete the citizen planner course.
Well, I did.
Well, I will have more information next meeting.
Thank you, Nick.
If nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Tinlin?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Cusero?
Yes.
Ms. Redmond?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
And Mr. Solomon? All right, thank you.
Thank you all.